Be me, woman. Spent my entire 20s being the wokest feminist in every room. Wrote my thesis on dismantling the patriarchy through radical self-love. Always corrected people about everything. Mansplaining, manspreading, toxic masculinity, you name it, I called it out. Had a boyfriend in college named Derek. He was actually really sweet and thoughtful. Would plan dates, remember little things I mentioned, always texted back, but I dumped him because he was too nice, and it felt like performative allyship. Also, he was a man, and I was starting to realize men are basically the worst. Spent years on Twitter, educating men about their privilege. I had like 8,000 followers who loved my takes. Every tweet was fire about how men need to do better. Literally do better. I would say that all the time. Do better, be better, think better. Men would try to argue, and I would just quote bell hooks at them. I felt so powerful. Dated a few guys after Derek, but always found problems. One guy paid for dinner, and I lectured him about benevolent sexism. He looked confused and said he just wanted to do something nice. I told him nice is a tool of the patriarchy to keep women obligated. He never called again. Bullet dodged. Another guy asked me to come to his place and cook together. I went off about domestic labor and emotional labor, told him women have been cooking for men for centuries, and I am not here for it. He said he just thought it would be fun, and he loves cooking. I said fun is what the patriarchy calls exploitation. He also stopped texting. Good riddance to both of them. Men are so fragile. Can't handle a strong woman with opinions. Anyway, started going to this feminist book club. Met Sarah there. She was amazing. Short purple hair, undercut, nose ring, the works. She talked about how she had dated women exclusively for 5 years. Said it was so much better than dealing with men. I was intrigued. I've been feeling some kind of way lately anyway. Maybe I was bisexual and just didn't know it. Or maybe I was a lesbian and compulsory heterosexuality had been controlling me. Yeah, that made sense. Comp het is real, and I was a victim of it. I started reading more about it. Every article confirmed what I suspected. I had been brainwashed by society to think I needed men, but I didn't need men. Women are better at everything anyway. More emotionally intelligent, better communicators, more empathetic. Literally, why was I wasting time with men? Started going to LGBT events. Met Rachel at a pride rally. She was holding a sign about smashing the gender binary. I was holding a sign about destroying cis-hetero patriarchy. We were perfect for each other. Started talking and just clicked immediately. She got all my references. Understood my frustration with the world. We exchanged numbers. Started texting constantly. She was so different from the men I dated. Actually responded to texts, used emojis, seemed emotionally available. We went on our first date to a vegan restaurant. I was so excited, finally dating someone who gets it. Someone who understands systemic oppression. Someone who won't mansplain, or gaslight, or show toxic masculinity. The date was nice. We talked about our favorite feminist authors, complained about men together. It felt so validating. She paid for dinner, and I didn't feel weird about it because paying for women is different. It's not about power dynamics when there is no patriarchy involved. We started dating officially. Changed my social media to reflect my new identity. Added rainbow flags to everything. Put she, her in my bio, even though I always had it there. But now it meant more, because I was officially queer. Felt so authentic. Posted about how I finally understood myself. Got so many likes. My followers were so supportive. Kept posting about how healthy my relationship was. How different it was from dating men. How I finally felt seen and understood. The first few months were amazing, honestly. Rachel and I would stay up late, talking about everything. Our childhoods, our dreams, our trauma. Mostly our trauma. She had a lot of trauma from her ex-girlfriend. Talked about her constantly. How her ex was so toxic and manipulative. How she gave everything to that relationship and got nothing back. I was sympathetic, obviously. I told her I was here for her and would never treat her that way. She said I was different from everyone she ever dated. That made me feel special. But then she started needing a lot of reassurance. Like a lot. Would text me constantly asking if I still liked her. If I thought she was pretty. If I was talking to anyone else. At first I thought it was cute. She was just really into me. I would reassure her every time. Yes, babe, You are gorgeous. No, babe, I am not talking to anyone else. Yes, babe, I still like you. But it became like every single day, multiple times a day. If I didn't respond within 10 minutes, she would send follow-up texts. Are you mad at me? Did I do something wrong? Why are you ignoring me? I wasn't ignoring her, I was just at work. Tried to explain that I have a job and can't always text back immediately, she said. I was being dismissive of her needs. That triggered me because men always call women needy. Didn't want to be that person who invalidates their partner's feelings. So I apologized and promised to be better about texting. Started keeping my phone on me at all times, checking it constantly to make sure she knew I cared. My work performance started slipping, but love requires sacrifice. Then Rachel started getting upset about my friends. I had this friend, Dave, from college. Just a friend. Nothing romantic, ever. We would get coffee sometimes and catch up. Rachel saw him tagged in one of my old Facebook photos. Asked who he was. I explained he was just a friend. She got really quiet. Asked why I was still friends with men if I was dating a woman. I said because friendship is not about gender. She said it made her uncomfortable. She said if I really cared about her, I would prioritize her comfort. I felt guilty. Maybe she had a point. Men do make things complicated. So I stopped talking to Dave. He texted me a few times asking if everything was okay. I left him on red. Rachel was happy about that. Said it showed I was committed. But then it was other friends. My friend, Melissa, from work. Rachel said, Melissa seemed like she had a crush on me. I laughed and said Melissa was straight and married. Rachel said I was being naive. Said lots of people in straight marriages are secretly queer. And that Melissa probably wanted to experiment with me. It seemed far-fetched, but Rachel was really upset. Crying about how everyone wants to steal me from her. How she can't trust anyone. I felt bad. Stopped getting lunch with Melissa. Melissa seemed hurt, but I told her I was just busy. Rachel went through my phone one day. I came out of the shower, and she was just scrolling through my messages. I was shocked. Asked her what she was doing. She started crying immediately. Said she was so sorry, but her anxiety got the best of her. Said she just needed to make sure I wasn't hiding anything. I was angry, but also she was crying so hard. She said her ex used to cheat on her constantly, and she just can't go through that again. I held her while she sobbed. Told her she could look through my phone whenever she needed to. I had nothing to hide. Gave her my passcode. She seemed relieved. Things were calm for like a week. Then she started commenting on what I wore. Said my jeans were too tight. Asked who I was dressing for. I said I was dressing for myself. She said that sounds like something someone would say if they were trying to attract attention. Started wearing baggier clothes to avoid fights. My friends noticed I looked different. One of them asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. Better than fine. I was in love. Rachel and I moved in together after 6 months. I thought living together would make things easier. She would feel more secure if we were together all the time. But it got worse. She would get upset if I spent too long in the bathroom. Said I was avoiding her. If I wanted to read a book, she said I cared more about books than her. If I went to bed early, she accused me of being distant. Started walking on eggshells constantly, trying to anticipate what would upset her. One night I mentioned, maybe we should do a trip to see my parents. She exploded. Said, I was clearly ashamed of her. Said, I probably wanted to leave her. Said, everyone always leaves her. I tried to calm her down. Said, of course I didn't want to leave her. She started throwing things. Broke a mug my grandma gave me. Then immediately started apologizing and crying. Said she didn't know what came over her. Begged me not to leave her. I was shaken, but I hugged her and said it was okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Women are taught to suppress their anger, so actually, her expressing it was healthy. Yeah, that made sense. I cleaned up the broken mug, started being more careful about what I said. Months went by like this. Constant cycles of walking on eggshells, then fights, then apologies. I stopped posting about my relationship on social media. People were asking if we were still together. I said, yes, everything is great, just been busy. Truth was, I was exhausted. One day, I was at the coffee shop trying to work on my laptop. Needed to get out of the apartment. Rachel had been particularly intense that morning, upset that I didn't say good morning the right way. Apparently my tone was off. I didn't even know what that meant, but I apologized Anyway, was sitting there with my coffee, just trying to breathe. And Derek walked in. Derek, my ex from college. The nice one I dumped for being too nice. He saw me and his face lit up. He came over and asked how I was. I felt something crack inside me and started crying right there in the coffee shop. He looked alarmed and sat down, asked what was wrong. I unloaded everything, told him about Rachel. The controlling behavior, the constant accusations, walking on eggshells, losing all my friends. He listened quietly. When I finished, he said something that made me angry at first. He said it sounds exactly like what his friend went through with her boyfriend. I said it's not the same. This is different because we are both women. There is no patriarchy in a queer relationship. He just looked at me sadly. Said, abuse is abuse, regardless of gender. Manipulation is manipulation. Control is control. I wanted to argue, but I was too tired. He said something else. Said, when we dated, he felt like he was always wrong, like nothing he did was good enough, that I would lecture him about his privilege constantly, make him feel guilty for being considerate. He said he thought he was the problem for years. Went to therapy about it. His therapist helped him realize that he was allowed to have boundaries, that being a man didn't mean he deserved to be treated poorly, that equality goes both ways. I felt defensive. Said, that is not the same thing at all. He shrugged and said, maybe not, but said I should think about what I actually want in a relationship, what I deserve, regardless of the gender of who I am with. He gave me his therapist's number, said I should talk to someone. Then he left. I sat there for a long time. My coffee got cold. Started thinking about all the things I used to say about men, how they are emotionally unavailable, how they don't communicate, how they manipulate and gaslight. Rachel did all those things, but she was a woman, so I made excuses. Said it was her trauma. Said she was healing. Said love means being patient. Started thinking about Derek, how he would plan thoughtful dates, remember little details about my day, check in without being controlling. I called it performative, but what if it was just care? Actual care. Thought about the guy who wanted to pay for dinner. I called it benevolent sexism. But what if he just wanted to treat me? The guy who wanted to cook together. I said it was domestic labor expectations. But what if he genuinely enjoyed cooking and wanted to share that? All these men who tried to be good to me. And I intellectualized it into oppression, because I needed to be right about men being bad. Needed my worldview to be confirmed. My phone buzzed. Rachel texting, asking where I was. Saying she was worried. Saying I should have told her I was leaving. Saying she thought something happened to me. Saying I was being inconsiderate. I looked at the messages. I really looked at them. This was not love. This was not what I deserved. Gender studies degree didn't prepare me for this. All my feminist theory didn't protect me from abuse, because I was so convinced that women were inherently better, that relationships without men were automatically healthier. I had made myself vulnerable to the exact things I accused men of doing. Went home and told Rachel we needed to talk. She immediately started crying. I said she knew I was going to leave her. Said I met someone at the coffee shop, didn't I? Said she could tell I was being distant. I stayed calm. Said this wasn't working, that we both deserved better. She cycled through everything. Crying, anger, bargaining, threats. Said she would hurt herself if I left. Said I was abandoning her like everyone else. Said I was a terrible person. I held my boundary, something I never did before. Told her she needed to move out. It was my apartment anyway. She left that night to stay with a friend. Spent the next week blowing up my phone. I blocked her eventually. Had to for my own sanity. Sat alone in my apartment for the first time in over a year. It was quiet, peaceful. I could breathe. Called Derek's therapist. Started going to sessions. Talked through everything. My relationships with men. My relationship with Rachel. My need to be right. My identity wrapped up in being a victim of the patriarchy. Therapist was a woman, ironically. She didn't coddle me. Asked hard questions. Made me examine my own behavior. My own role in failed relationships. Started realizing I had been just as toxic in my own way. Treated Derek poorly because I needed him to be an example of male toxicity. when he was just a guy who cared about me. Pushed away every man who showed interest because I had to prove they were all bad, needed them to be bad so I could be right. Being right was more important than being happy. Months passed. Worked on myself. Actually worked on myself. Not performative self-care Instagram posts. Real therapy, real introspection, real growth. Started reaching out to old friends I had cut off. Apologized to Dave for ghosting him. He was gracious about it. Said he was glad I was doing better. Didn't even make me explain everything. Just accepted the apology. Melissa from work too. She was hurt but understood. We got lunch, and I was honest about what happened. She was supportive. One day, I ran into Derek again. Same coffee shop. He asked how I was doing. I was honest. Said I was better. Said therapy was helping. Thanked him for the recommendation. We talked for a while. He told me about his life. He was seeing someone. Seemed happy. I felt happy for him. Genuinely happy. Not jealous or bitter. Just glad he found someone who appreciated him. He said something before he left. Said he hoped I found what I was looking for. That I deserved to be happy. Even after how I treated him, he was still kind. I cried in my car after. Not sad tears. Just overwhelmed by the grace of it. This man I had villainized and dismissed, who I had treated as an embodiment of everything wrong with men, was showing me more compassion than I ever showed him. Started re-evaluating everything I thought I knew. Maybe men weren't the problem. Maybe I was bringing my own issues into every relationship. Maybe I was so busy looking for oppression, I created conflict where there was none. Maybe equality actually means treating people as individuals, not as representatives of their gender. Revolutionary thought, apparently. My whole identity had been built on being in opposition to men. The feminist who called out toxic masculinity, who educated and corrected and lectured. But I had become toxic myself, just in a different way. Started reading different perspectives. Not just feminist echo chambers. Actually listening to men's experiences. What they dealt with in relationships. How they felt pressured to perform. How they were afraid to be vulnerable. How they were told their feelings didn't matter. How they were seen as perpetrators by default. It was uncomfortable to read. Had to sit with my own complicity. How I contributed to those narratives. How I weaponized social justice language. Used it as a cudgel instead of a tool for understanding. Thought about all the things men tried to tell me over the years. Things I dismissed as mansplaining or fragility. Maybe some of it was just their experience. Just as valid as mine. Maybe relationships are hard for everyone. Maybe men were right about love requiring compromise. About communication going both ways. About partnership being. About mutual respect, not scorekeeping. All the things I rolled my eyes at. The traditional relationship advice I mocked. Some of it was actually wisdom. Derek was right when he said he just wanted to do nice things. It wasn't about control or obligation. It was about expressing care. The guy who wanted to pay for dinner wasn't trying to own me. He was trying to contribute. The guy who wanted to cook together wasn't expecting domestic labor. He was offering partnership. I had poisoned every interaction with suspicion, interrogated every gesture for hidden patriarchy, made it impossible for anyone to just be human with me, because I needed to be the smartest person in the room, the most woke, the most aware of systems of oppression, and it made me insufferable. It made me alone. It made me miss out on real connection, because connection requires vulnerability. It requires assuming good intent, requires seeing people as people, not as problems to solve or enemies to defeat. Rachel taught me that dysfunction doesn't have a gender, that abuse dynamics can happen anywhere, that I was just as capable of making excuses for bad behavior. When it came from someone I didn't want to criticize, I gave her passes I never gave men, because she was a woman, and women are supposed to be better, supposed to be more emotionally intelligent, more communicative, more empathetic. But she was none of those things, because those are individual traits, not gender traits. Some women are terrible at communication. Some men are incredibly emotionally available. Took me almost 30 years to figure that out. Sitting in my apartment, actually content for the first time in years. Not performing contentment for social media. actually at peace. Thought about updating my online presence, posting about what I learned, but decided against it. Didn't need to perform growth, didn't need validation from strangers, just needed to be better. Do better, as I used to say, but actually mean it this time. Not demanding others do better, actually doing the work myself. Deleted most of my social media, eventually. The constant performance was exhausting. The need to have the right take on everything, to educate and correct, to be perpetually outraged. It was eating me alive. Real life was better anyway. Started dating again eventually. Men, mostly. Went on a date with a woman too. Realized I probably wasn't actually a lesbian. Maybe bisexual. Maybe just straight and confused. Honestly didn't matter anymore. Wasn't going to build an identity around who I was attracted to. It was just one part of me, not my whole personality. Went on a date with a guy named Marcus. He offered to pick me up. Old me would have said no and lectured about independence. I said yes. He showed up on time with flowers. Old me would have written an essay about performative chivalry. I said thank you and appreciated the gesture. He picked a restaurant and made reservations. Old me would have been offended. He didn't ask my input. I was relieved someone else made decisions. We talked about normal things. Our jobs, our hobbies, our families. He asked questions and actually listened. I asked questions too. He didn't interrogate him about his views on feminism. He didn't test him with trick questions about privilege. Just got to know him as a person. He was kind and funny. Little awkward, but in an endearing way. Paid for dinner without making a big deal about it. I said thank you. He said it was his pleasure. Walked me to my door, asked if he could see me again. I said yes. He didn't try to kiss me. Said he wanted to take things slow. Old me would have psychoanalyzed that. Decided he was playing games or had issues with intimacy. New me appreciated the respect. We dated for a few months. It was easy. Not fireworks and intensity. Just comfortable and steady. He had boundaries and communicated them. I had boundaries and communicated them. We both respected each other. Novel concept, apparently. Sometimes I would catch myself starting to spiral, getting suspicious or looking for problems. I would pause and ask myself what was actually happening. Usually nothing. Usually just my old patterns trying to reassert themselves. I would talk to my therapist about it. She would help me reality test, separate actual concerns from manufactured ones. It was work. Real work. Not the performative activism I used to do. Actual internal change. Marcus and I eventually broke up, mutually and amicably. We wanted different things long term. He wanted kids, and I didn't. We talked about it like adults. Agreed to part ways. Stayed friendly. No drama. No accusations. No blocked numbers. Just two people who cared about each other. Recognizing incompatibility and handling it with grace. Old me would have found a way to make him the villain. Would have posted about it. Made it a story about how men can't handle XYZ. New me just appreciated what we had. Learned from it and moved on. Turned 30 last month. Had a small party with actual friends. People who knew me and liked me. Not just online followers who liked my takes. Dave came and brought his girlfriend. Melissa came with her husband. Even Derek stopped by with his partner. We all talked and laughed. No tension, no awkwardness. Just people who genuinely enjoyed each other. Someone asked how I was doing with dating. I said I was taking my time. Not in a rush. Would rather be alone than in something unhealthy. And I meant it. Being alone wasn't scary anymore. It was just a neutral state. Sometimes I think about who I was. The online feminist, with all the answers. So certain about everything. So quick to judge and condemn. I cringe, honestly, at my self-righteousness. My inability to see nuance. My need to make everything about systems and structures, instead of just human interaction. Men were right about a lot of things. Not everything, obviously, but more than I gave them credit for. Love does require vulnerability and trust. Relationships do need compromise from both people. Communication is not just about expressing yourself. It's about listening too. Nice gestures are usually just nice gestures, not manipulation or control. And sometimes people are just trying their best, deserving of grace, not judgment. All the things I mocked as simplistic or patriarchal were actually just true. Regardless of gender, my feminist theory couldn't save me from a toxic relationship because I had exempted women from scrutiny, made them victims by default, incapable of harm. That was naive, and it hurt me. Had to learn the hard way that equality means everyone is capable of everything, good and bad. Women can be abusive. Men can be victims. Feminist language can be weaponized. Social justice can become self-righteousness. Being right can make you miserable. And sometimes the patriarchy is just an excuse, not to examine your own behavior, not to take responsibility, not to grow. I still care about equality, still think feminism has value, but a different kind now, one rooted in actual equality, not female supremacy disguised as liberation, one that sees men as partners, not enemies, one that values individual character over gender categories, one that practices what it preaches about respect and dignity for everyone, not just people who agree with me. My life is quieter now, smaller, but fuller. Real relationships instead of online performance. Actual growth instead of performative wokeness. Peace instead of constant outrage. Happiness instead of being right. Dating women taught me men were right about love all along, not because women are worse, but because people are just people, capable of beauty and ugliness regardless of gender. And real love requires seeing that clearly, without the filter of ideology, without the need to prove a point, just honest connection between two imperfect humans, trying their best, showing up for each other. That is what I want now. That is what I am working towards. And I finally understand what Derek and all those other guys were trying to give me, before I intellectualized it away, before I needed to be right more than I needed to be loved. Better late than never, I guess.